Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Thursday, June the 5th. And welcome to our commentary. Well, I guess the big battle in Washington today is between President Trump and Elon Musk. They're kind of going back and forth a little bit. But, I understand these two guys have egos and all that, but I am a little surprised. I have to confess. I'm a little surprised that Elon Musk would pick a fight about the bill or the beautiful bill or whatever you want to call it at the moment. And the reason for that is that because of reconciliation, this so-called beautiful bill is going through reconciliation, which means none of the things that Elon Musk wants to do, all the different cuts that he wants to make, all the different changes that he wants to make. And by the way, I agree with most of them. He cannot do this by reconciliation because reconciliation is a very specific approach. It's a very small window in the Senate to get these things done. So you can sit here and criticize what's not in this bill, but the reality is that what's in this bill is all you can put in reconciliation because that's what they're doing. They're trying to get this to reconciliation, the 2017, making the 2017 tax cuts permanent, cutting taxes on Social Security, cutting taxes on overtime, and a couple of other things that they're doing. But the reality is that the things that Musk wants to do have to be done through the regular appropriations, which means the House has to pass a budget, and then it has to go to the Senate for a huge debate and all of that in the Senate, which is more complicated, of course, because in the Senate, you got to get 60 votes for appropriations, whereas in reconciliation, you just need a simple majority. So I'm a little disappointed that Musk would pick a fight at this time. I mean, he had to know, or somebody should tell him, that what he wants to do cannot be done through reconciliation. So I'm a little bit surprised that he would pick a fight now when, again, he had to know, or somebody must have told him, that there's nothing more that you can do through reconciliation. So that's the part that puzzles me. That's the part that puzzles me. Now, some people are saying that this is because he lost the credits on his electric cars. In other words, the subsidy or credit to buy an electric car. Look, if you're going to be in favor of reducing the size of government, then you got to be in favor of eliminating subsidies, because that's how you get the big government that we have right now, because of all these subsidies and all this protection for one industry or another. But anyway, I have no idea what's going to happen between Musk and Trump. Maybe it's over. It's a shame if that's what happens, because I think they work together very well. And they certainly, they were talking to each other a few days ago and everything's looked fine. And now all of a sudden you have this explosion between the two men. Well, I should say more Musk. Trump so far has been holding back. He hasn't really been punching back like he normally does. He's been kind of holding back a little bit. So maybe he's letting Elon just air out his frustrations. And at some point in time, there'll be a reconciliation. I hope so. I hope so, because I think the country is better off if Elon Musk is on our side, because there's nothing on the other side for him to be a part of. There's nothing on the other side for him to be a part of, because if he thinks that the Republicans are not going to cut enough from the budget, the Democrats are going to cut nothing from the budget. So there's nothing on the other side to run to. So hopefully Elon has a few days to cool off, and maybe, I hope there's a reconciliation with Trump at some point down the road. But I can tell you this, and again, I'll repeat myself. What Elon Musk wants to do with the budget cannot be done through reconciliation, which is where this bill is right now. This bill is through reconciliation, and reconciliation is very clear that it has to do about taxes, not simply cutting this government or that particular government program. I've got a post over at the American Thinker today. Somebody did a study about liberal women. And what is it about liberal women that, I don't know, makes them a little hysterical? You may have, look, I don't think you have to be very politically active to realize that, or to see that many liberal women seem to act a little bit crazy lately. Just crazy. Well, they did a study. And they found out that apparently a lot of liberal women are having mental health issues. And this lady in the New York Post, who wrote a very interesting commentary about all of this, her name is Ricky Schott, I think it is her name. And she did a great commentary that she wrote. I linked to it in my post over at the American Thinker. And she was saying that in her opinion, the problem is that women in the left are focusing too much in grievances and government, whereas some of the women on the right are more family issues and, they go to church more often and so on. And that tends to create a more mentally healthy person. Look, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't want to go down that road. All I can tell you is that I do believe that Trump derangement syndrome has hit the women a little bit harder than the men. And you see it in these hysterical displays, whether it's protests, just watch MSNBC for one night and you can see in one evening as many hysterical women as there are in the country. So check out my post. It's over at the American Thinker it's called the Nowhere Woman, based on that song by the Beatles, Nowhere Man. Well, check it out. I hope you enjoyed. And if you want to put some comments over at the American Thinker, hey, we love to hear the comments. The country of Mexico has filed a lawsuit against gun manufacturers in the United States. And they like $10 million lawsuit alleging that gun manufacturers in the United States are responsible for these guns that are going south. Now, again, a lot of guns do go south. Excuse me. A lot of guns do go south. And it's a problem. Nobody's denying that. And many of those guns are crossing the border. Nobody's denying that. But it's not because they're sold in the United States. It's because there's very bad controls in Mexico. It's because, unfortunately, a lot of those border areas, the controls are not there. If the Mexican government had control of their border, they could stop these guns very easily by simply stopping the trucks or whatever coming through. But they've lost control of the border. And that is the real reason why so many guns go to Mexico. There's also another problem, too. A lot of guns come from other countries. A lot of guns are stolen from Army inventories. But it's not because of the United States. It's not because these companies here are manufacturing guns so that they can be sent to Mexico. Most of the guns that go to Mexico are not sold to Mexicans. They're sold to people who bring them to Mexico or whatever the case may be. So they went to the Supreme Court. They filed a lawsuit. The Supreme Court said, no, you cannot file this lawsuit because you cannot prove that these gun manufacturers were making these guns with the intent of killing people in Mexico. So the issue is dead, I guess, at least in the courts. Politically, it's never going to die because this is a talking point for much of the Mexican left. But really, what Mexico needs to do is take a very hard look at its border security, because that's where the problem is. That is what the problem is. The problem is on the border, in border security on both sides, really, but especially on the Mexico side more than ever, because the guns are going south. They go south with cash. That's how it works. Cash goes down to finance the cartels, and guns go down, unfortunately, for the cartels to use, or other criminal elements, not just the cartels. So Mexico has to do a better job of controlling what goes south if they're really interested in doing something, because suing the American manufacturers, gun manufacturers, it's not going to work. The Supreme Court has said no. But it's not really an answer anyway. It's just a distraction from what the real issue is. The real issue is that these guns are going south because, frankly, there are very bad controls going south. That's what the real issue is. And I would love to see Mexico and the United States work together on this, because it's in Mexico's benefit to control this flow of guns. So maybe Mexico and the United States should do a joint project on the border on both sides and say, hey, let's work together to stop the gun flow. It would help Mexico a great deal. I guarantee you that. It would help Mexico a great deal. Well, you heard that President Trump passed a travel ban for many, many different countries. And look, I think it's a wise thing to do, because we've got to take control of our immigration situation, especially after this terrible situation in Boulder, Colorado. I have no idea who's in this country, and I have no idea what their intentions are. And I guarantee you that there's a lot of people like this fellow in Boulder who have bad intentions. And I think we need to stop it. We have to figure out some way of stopping it. So one of the good ways, one of the better ways to do it is you got to start deporting the people who are here, and you got to shut down the entrance and simply say, for the next 6 months, we're not going to issue asylums. For the next 6 months, we're going to shut down asylums, and we're going to start looking at the people who are here, particularly the ones whose visas have expired, and let's find out what's going on. This guy in Boulder, his tourist visa expired over a year ago, and then incredibly, he was able to get a work visa, which is really confusing. It tells me that, one side of the immigration department was obviously not talking to the other side, because how do you give a guy a work visa over here when over here his tourist visa has expired? I mean, these two departments are obviously not talking to each other. But I support the ban for the time being, for a short time. It doesn't have to be forever. But I think we've got to get better control of what's happening in the country with respect to immigration. We have to have better control, no question about that. But let me take you back to January the 5th, 1944. 81 years ago today. At about this time, which is roughly 4 o'clock Central Time, that would be about 11 o'clock, midnight or so in Europe, a lot of American soldiers and a lot of English soldiers, a lot of Allied soldiers were sitting in their ships waiting for the trip to France to begin what came to be known as D-Day. And they were just sitting there waiting for the ship to start. And then, of course, in the early morning of June the 6th in Europe, they began to land at the different beaches, Juno Beach and so on, there on the shores of France. And that happened on the 6th of June. But of course, the preparations were underway the night before. It's just, I remember we had a friend here, Bob Jaggers, a friend from the church who passed away in 2021. And Bob was a veteran of D-Day. Now, he was not in the invasion. He was in one of the ships out in the ocean. At one point, he was responsible for some German prisoners. And, a lot of the people who participated in this event, most of them are dead, and many of them are dying because, I mean, if you were 20 years old in 1944 and you were sitting in one of those ships, you're 100 years old now. So more than likely you've passed away. There are fewer and fewer of these men who were veterans of World War II, and especially D-Day, who are still around. So I'm sure I'm sure that there are some members of that very elite group of people who are still around, but I think there's less than 5,000, maybe not even that many, who are still around, again, because time passes, and they're clearly men in their, probably 100 years old, most of them at the time, so most of them are probably dead by now. But D-Day, 1944, was starting to happen about this time, what would have been January 5th for us, January 6th over in Europe. Well, thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.